my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes. You got those pretty eyes in your head.
Back, everybody. Welcome back to Reality Check Online Radio. Yeah, we're having crazy discussions in studio. With me currently, I've got 3 guests. All I have to warn you right now, we've got the Sicilian Mafia in the house, the Mitchell's Plain Mafia, as well as somebody from Manchester United. I think he's also sitting here. It's a crazy, crazy time in studio. But yeah, needless to say, we've got a special lady in the house that goes by the name Nina Alexia Brazzo, Sicilian Mafia. She's going to do something special for us. Nina, all yours.
Broken. The broken heart that you gave me. The broken heart that you gave me. The broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. I remember when you pushed me back against the wall, the angry troll that you had become. Spitting your dark symphonies, it rattled me. I love you. Won't it just stop? The broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. You'd said you'd see me next Tuesday as you pulled at my headscarf, exposing my hair. The path was lowly being dragged through the gutter, humiliating, confusing. My life was a blur. The broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. The day that you punched me in the face, cut full of your moaning and whining, it shattered my respect for you. It would never be the same again. Just one more blow to the cradle, and then it would be empty. The broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. When you kicked me to the floor, I fell like a bag of garbage, with my heart heavy, dropping to the core of the globe. You trod on me like chewing gum. The broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. For was I in a movie, watching a film in slow motion? But she didn't see eye to eye. She was no more, nothing. There were no more oysters in the world. No matter how hard she tried, she was no longer a visionary of the future. No more dreams, incapable to create images or to sing a song. The broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. Inside out, I was returning to a clotted blob. Domestic abuse comes in 7, with physical being the easiest to endure. How does one explain the repetition of psychological, the entanglement of emotional, the isolation of social, the oppression of spiritual, being the giver in economical and taken in sexual? The broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. For this could not possibly happen to me. This is reserved for those meek and meek, powerless to the prowess. How did I find myself here? The broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me, the broken heart that you gave me plays like a broken record in my head. Sitting on top of my chest, legs and arms pinned down now, strangling me. The throat was sticking together 2 days ago. So with Zika to ease the pain, you are closer than my jugular vein. As I touch fate with death, I finally am woken. I've had enough of your games of control. If I am to taste life again, I must be better than this. I must rise up, and my majesty took me out that door.
Wow. All I'm going to say is, wow. Told the story. And let's jump straight to it. Let's ask, who is Nina? Where's Nina from?
So I was born in England, in Essex. I'm of English and Sicilian, and I'm sure some other ancestral links there. So Nina Alexia Brazzo, that's why it has Sicilian roots in my name. Yep.
Wow. All right. So now, when you say you're from Essex, and I just want to jump there as well, you know, and on the telly, normally, when we say females from Essex, they're all puffed up, you know, all this makeup and, you know, this expensive handbags and all that.
I was hoping you wouldn't know all that.
So yeah, so now, is that a misconception? Is there other type of females in Essex?
There's a lot of them there, but I'd say it's a stereotype that comes from across England. Might even be your Camps Bay or a certain type of people that you get here maybe sometimes. So I think it's a cliche of a certain type of man or woman. And I think that I just never resonated with that attachment of when you say that you're from Essex and you're like, oh, Essex girl, eh? I never really related to actually being like that. And I suppose it kind of shows your journey of how I ended up here and found actually my kindred spirits, and I embraced Islam. And so, yes, this kind of airhead, bimbo, false nails and all of that jazz, it never really wasn't really who I was. And I found my way in other things.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, my true meaning of actually who I really am.
Fantastic.
So I hope that I can be an ambassador for in a good way for Essex, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I can still fly that flag, you know, and not be in denial, but maybe celebrate it. I think what resonates with me is that I want to be remembered and seen for what I say and what I do, and not what I look like. And maybe even go beyond the stereotype as well.
Yeah, you know, it takes you know, when you just said you're from Essex, and I thought, okay, I've met quite a few people from Essex. I've also watched The Real Housewives from Essex, you know, totally different. And you know, when you mentioned something about Sicilian, the very first thing that comes to mind is the mafia. Mm-hmm. You know, and I know we had this discussion, but you had a different meaning, or the true meaning of mafia. Could you elaborate on that for us?
Yes. So my grandparents migrated to England in the 50s. So when I went into my grandparents' home, that for me was my little Sicily. But due to the racism that they received when they migrated to England, their way of dealing with it is they didn't actually really tell me so much about the history of Sicily and pass on the language. Although, as I said, when I walked into their home, it was a little Sicily, full of emotion if you've ever met a Sicilian. So it was only really in my mid-20s, after I'd actually travelled around the world, that I found myself in the Round Reading Room in London, and I found this unmarked book. It was like a hardcover book, but it had no title or anything on it, and it was about Sicily. And one of the things that I was really trying to find out was what was the history and what is this mafia thing? Because from a child, the first thing that someone thinks or they say is mafia. And being told that I'm mafia all my life, I then wanted to get to the source, you know, of actually how I reconcile with what this mafia is that I'm told that I am. So then I actually was quite flabbergasted when I started reading the history, and the Sicilian language has a lot of words that are not in the Italian language and culture. And so this true term of mafia means beauty, perfection, grace, and sheer excellence. So, for example, if you were selling brooms or a jacket or whatever, and you're on the marketplace and you'd be like, okay, these are the best brooms in town or the best jacket, they are molto mafia. So it was actually used in a different context, in a different way. Also, if a woman had good character and she took care of her appearance, then and she's like marriage material, she had these qualities, and she would be mafia. And so it's actually a big compliment that you call someone, and it means that something was really great and the best one, And also it has Arabic roots, which means place of refuge. And since that, I've been now learning a little bit more about the Arabic language and learning the grammar, the Nahu and the Sarf, if anyone knows about Arabic. And I now have been able to locate what the original source of that word is. So it's just a classic example of really how our language and our meanings can be hijacked and spin doctored for whoever is the oppressor to actually used against you, actually. So the true meaning is actually really beautiful. And it just changes that perception of maybe even how, maybe even a community or ancestry of we come from, that we're trapped in a certain kind of identity, but it's actually how other people see and perceive us. And hopefully at some point in our journey, we find out actually who are we really beyond these veils of the outward or the stereotyping, yeah.
The definition of mafia, it just brought a memory back from when I was at school. When I was at school, we actually got homework. It was the acronym mafia, what does it stand for? Because it knows. And a lot of research, and I was the one that actually found the answer. And the acronym that stands for Morte al France Italia Ante, murder or French in Italy. And this was like a call that they had from the French Revolution. And that is how, and now I listen to what you are telling me, and it's like in total contrast to what I've known, you understand? And like you say, it is maybe just the way the Italians use it, but the Sicilians themselves. So if I look at a mafia movie, I'm going to tell myself, nah, but this is something good, because Sicilian told me what the actual meaning of the word mafia is. And now you've moved around the world, and now you're in South Africa. How did that come about, that you found that I want to be in South Africa?
So one of my dreams was to travel around the world, and it was supposed to be just 1 year. And I kept delaying every flight, and I found myself in China, and I still had to get a few flights. I was like, no, I'm going to leave those flights. I'm just going to keep going. So it turned into 2.5 years of continuous traveling. And actually, it was in a very fantastical way that South Africa was never on the list. Mafia. But I realized that when all of the land was one mass, and then now obviously it's separated into different continents, I actually realized that I started in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and I actually wanted to finish where I started, which actually would be Cape Town. And it actually started off as just, I made a New Year's wish on a beach in a place called Paradise, on a beach in Kerala in India. And at that time it was a bit of an impossibility, but by the time it was 15th of February I was in Joburg, and by 15th of March I was in Cape Town. So actually I saw it as a story of completion, of seeing the whole of the world and humanity as one, and traversing that land. I find myself in different peoples and cultures, but interestingly enough, as soon as I landed in Joburg, I was like, I'm home. I just felt this connection to the land. So I feel so blessed that sometimes maybe our prayers or our wishes might seem a bit strange at the time, but I found my home here, and that was in 2009. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's how I got here, and I was invited to do a photography commission. I'm originally a photographer, and I was shooting around the villages of Polokwane. A great introduction to people here. It was an awesome experience. Yeah, and then I travelled a bit around, and just wherever I go, I just felt like this is my place, my calling.
You know, most people living in South Africa, from personal experience also, is I don't think most people living in South Africa will know South Africa to the extent Understand? Like most people, they are born in the Western Cape. They're gonna die in the Western Cape. They've never been to KwaZulu Natal, even Eastern Cape. They're just next door to us. They haven't been there. Now, your journey through South Africa, on your way to Cape Town, with the experiences of the people that you've met, cultures, that you talk about. If you should put it all together, what would you say? What would you? How would you describe South Africans as a whole?
Well, that's a really big question. And it's evolved over time, because the more I live here and the more I immerse myself in communities, then it obviously changes over the time. But I suppose back then, if I can go back to just then, it resonated somehow of a world citizen. There's such diversity here. And actually, if we can celebrate all these different lands within Southern Africa and the peoples, I think it's that merging of all the different people, celebrating that really, and yeah, just seeing myself in the people here. I think it's a resonance of a kindred spirit. I can only say it in that way, the best of this resilience, this can-do attitude, the ability that people have a sense of humour even when shit is hitting the fan. People being quite straight talking, which you don't get in all countries. Telling things how it is. That reality, that rawness. Yeah, there's a rawness and harshness to it, but it's like you just see everything. All that laundry, including the dirty laundry, is hanging out. So it's like, it's actually just truth, you know? I don't know how well I'm explaining it, but I just feel that South Africa's a little bit like a smack in the face that wakes you up. But in that,
Nina,
there's stars and a rainbow, and there's beauty too. I don't know if I'm making any sense,
Yeah,
but I
you
see
are.
so much beauty when I go to all areas, nowhere's off limit. And when I go to the townships, I go across Cape Flats, I even get emotional because I see so much beauty. And I hope that people can see the beauty in South Africa
And now
and in themselves, because there's so much beauty. And I think that's why my MPO is called Rahasia Mafusa. And that's why I feel so strongly about relabeling Mafia, is that really it's about unveiling your true potential, the beauty of who you really are. Yeah.
you're getting quite emotional. And
yeah,
Because I love
Nina.
actually South Africa, and I really want to celebrate
I
it.
can feel.
Yeah, let me jump in there. You know, the one thing is, there's two questions I like to ask Nina is, you know, you made a statement when you moved from Sicily, right?
Actually, I haven't been to Sicily yet. From England.
From England.
I'm an
so-
Essex girl, remember?
Oh, from Essex. Sorry. But you mentioned something when you moved from there to somewhere, you've experienced racism,
Oh,
right?
Right.
Your grandparents,
Yeah.
and just a definition for you, because you know, in South Africa, racism for us is normally black and white. You know, no in between. But when you say you're moving, and the countries that you mentioned, I'm looking at quite also being extensively also traveled, and that you know, it's white to white. The definition for racism for you, the world, and also just to clarify that in South Africa.
Yeah, no, it really morphs, eh? It really depends on the context, and it has different flavours to it. So my grandparents emigrated from Sicily to England, and so I grew up with stories about how they were treated, and then I received racism myself. So I was never seen as a white English person, and that's why it was really difficult when I moved here, because I'm labelled or perceived as something that I never told I was, or I never thought that I was. So part of it, like, yeah. And so I suppose if I just look at, because your question about racism, so in England, the British style is very psychological and emotional. It's subtle, but it's palatable. And it's just in a look and the way that you're treated, that you're othered. So I grew up being called a Paki and a Wop. Wop would be the racist term for an Italian. And it's so kind of normalised that even someone who heritage is India, or if like everyone kind of will could look or say this kind of term, right? So I grew up feeling that I didn't belong, basically. And I suppose this is where it kind of comes into South Africa. I felt offensive. What I was looking for when I was travelling was a sense of belonging, and I just didn't ever feel like that way growing up in England, and I don't to this day. I don't resonate with the way people think and the way people perceive life. The expression of racism is different, but it's definitely there. And if you have friends that are of colour, out of different mixed heritage, and are Muslim, then you're going to hear the stories and you're going to know what's happening on the ground. But it won't necessarily be in the news, and it most certainly won't get in the news that goes internationally. They're much more clever with their media. And so really it's about also in the schooling system growing up of like how they would educate like what is a beautiful person, or things to do with descriptions about people and how they teach history. You know, I would just sit there feeling like, okay, well, I'm not in that category, or I just didn't feel this resonance to an English British kind of, you know, way. So I think that it has different flavours, and someone who is more Mediterranean or from certain parts of Europe wouldn't be regarded as white, or they wouldn't just regard themselves in that. I suppose it's a white Western identity or perspective. So I think Greek, Turkish, southern France, southern Italy, I suppose I just resonate on more of a Latino, Hispanic, and I always looked at like racial categories, and I just thought I don't know what to tick. Like I didn't really understand racial categories or really feel like how it didn't make any sense to me, and I didn't really know what I'd be ticking or whatever. So I suppose maybe in the long run of me understanding more historically of the how the term coloured came to be here, because that term you can't use in England because that's a racist term, so it's very triggering if I would use that word with my family or people in England. But I even have a definition here that I brought together, and I thought, okay, I resonate with this, okay? So one of them is the European nonconformists, and there's a whole list here of 7 steps of what the Cape or the coloured identity is. And I suppose I would most resonate with that, really, I guess.
Thank you. I will get there with regards to Nina. Nina, just another thing, just before we go to a break, something that you said was that when you landed here, 2009, this country is beautiful, and I used to say diversity is what makes our country. 2009, you landed here, you found it to be something that it's where you belong. Would you say 2023, South Africa is still the same?
It's evolved and changed in different ways, for sure.
We'll call it evolved. Nina said it's evolved, but yeah, we'll go for a break. And when we get back, that poem Nina did for us at the beginning, fantastic poem about abuse, and something she mentioned about abuse is 7. We'll dissect it. We'll find out more about Nina with regards to the topic abuse, and also very interesting. There's a program also. So we'll get to that after the break. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll be back in about 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere.